I married Vivienne in autumn. The leaves fell like copper coins around us. Her dress was the color of champagne. She smiled like she meant it. I believed her because I wanted to. Because the alternative, that someone could look at you like that and feel, at night, nothing was unthinkable. We met at a gallery opening. I was a forensic accountant then, specializing in corporate fraud. She was a criminal defense attorney, the kind who wore red lipstick 2 depositions and won cases through charm as much as strategy. We orbited each other for weeks before she spoke to me. "You look like someone who finds things people want to stay hidden," she said. "Only when they're paid to stay hidden," I replied. She laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. We were married within a year. Her apartment became our apartment. Her cases became dinner conversation. I learned the names of judges, prosecutors, the rhythm of the courtroom. She learned my silences, the way I processed information in layers, peeling back numbers until truth emerged. "You'd make a terrible criminal," she told me once. "You can't lie without cataloging it." "Good thing I married a defense attorney," I said. She kissed my temple. Her perfume smelled like jasmine and something darker. Amber, maybe, or smoke. The first 3 years were good. We bought a house with tall windows and wooden floors that creaked. She worked late. I worked from home. We had sex on Wednesdays and Sundays like clockwork. We argued about politics and never about money. She wanted children eventually. I wanted her happy. Then she took the Castellano case. Victor Castellano was accused of embezzling $17 million from his own pharmaceutical company. The prosecution had emails, wire transfers, falsified reports. It was airtight. Vivienne took the case anyway. "He's innocent," she said. "No one with that much evidence against him is innocent," I replied. "Then he's guilty, and I'll get him off anyway." She smiled. "Isn't that what you love about me?" I didn't answer. She brought case files home, spread them across our dining table like entrails. I watched her work watch, the way her fingers traced margins, how she underlined phrases 3 times for emphasis. She was brilliant. She was relentless. She started staying later at the office. I didn't question it. Her career mattered. I respected that. But I noticed small things. The way she checked her phone during dinner, how she showered as soon as she came home, even when she left the house only 3 hours before. The new perfume lighter, floral, not hers. I told myself I was paranoid. Then I found the burner phone. It was in her coat pocket. Black, cheap, the kind you buy at gas stations. I held it in my palm like a grenade. I knew what it meant. I knew, and I didn't want to know. I opened it. 17 unread messages, all from VC. Tonight. Same place. She suspects nothing. Once the trial's over, we disappear. I sat on the edge of our bed. The wood floor creaked. Outside, the leaves were falling again. It was autumn, just like when we married. I read every message. They'd been sleeping together for 11 months. He called her my salvation. She called him my future. They had plans accounts in the Caymans, a villa in Portugal, new identities. After the trial, after she got him acquitted, after she destroyed the evidence I had helped the prosecution build, because that's what I hadn't realized. That's what she'd been mining from me, all those late night conversations about forensic accounting, about how fraud cases were won and lost. She'd been learning how to dismantle them. She'd been using me to save him. I heard her car in the driveway. I put the phone back in her coat. I walked to the kitchen. I poured 2 glasses of wine. When she came in, she kissed my cheek. "How was your day?" she asked. "Productive," I said. I handed her the glass. She drank. She smiled. "I love you," she said. I looked at her Ellie, looked at the woman I'd married, the woman who'd learned my language just to betray me in it. "I love you too," I said. And I meant it. That was the worst part. I didn't confront her. That's what she expected. What most people would do: scream, throw things, demand explanations that would only be lies wrapped in prettier words. But I'd spent 15 years finding hidden money, tracing shell corporations through 12 countries, watching criminals smile in depositions while their empires burned in spreadsheets. I knew how to wait. I knew how to watch. The trial was in 6 weeks. I had time. I went to work the next morning like nothing had changed. Vivienne kissed me goodbye. Her lips tasted like coffee and mint. I wondered if Castellano knew that taste. I wondered if he knew she ground her teeth at night, that she cried during sad commercials, that she once told me she'd never felt safe until she met me. I wondered which version of her was real at my office. I opened a new file, private, encrypted. I titled it Discovery. Then I started digging. Victor Castellano wasn't just embezzling. That was the surface. Pharmaceutical fraud, price fixing, falsified drug trials. He'd built an empire on bodies. Patients who'd died because his company rushed medications to market. Families destroyed by opioids his company pushed through doctors they'd bribed. 17 million was just what they'd found. The real number was closer to 200 million. And Vivienne knew. I found the proof in her own files, the ones she thought she'd hidden in encrypted folders on her laptop. She'd left it open one night, fell asleep on the couch with case documents scattered around her like snow. I lifted it carefully, used her fingerprint while she slept inside. Everything communications with offshore accounts, plans to discredit witnesses, a memo, her handwriting outlining how to introduce reasonable doubt by framing the company's CFO for Castellano's crimes. The CFO was a woman named Sarah Chen, single mother, 2 kids. Vivienne planned to destroy her to save a mass murderer because she loved him or because she loved his money. I didn't know which was worse. I copied everything to an external drive, returned the laptop, covered Vivienne with a blanket. She stirred, murmured my name in her sleep. I touched her hair. "I'm here," I whispered. The next day, I followed her. She said she had depositions all day. I called in sick, watched her leave in her gray suit, the one with the subtle pinstripe. Professional, trustworthy. The costume she wore to court. She didn't go to her office. She drove to the Ashford Hotel, downtown. Expensive. The kind of place with doormen who don't remember faces for the right price. I parked 3 cars back, watched her walk in. 5 minutes later, Castellano arrived. He was handsome in that dangerous way. Sharp jaw, silver at his temples, expensive suit. The kind of man who looked like he belonged in boardrooms and yacht clubs. Not prison. Never prison. They went in together. Separate elevators. Room 1847. I sat in my car for 3 hours. When she came out, her hair was different. Still professional, but softer. She'd reapplied lipstick. Her smile was the one she used to give me. I drove home before she did. Started dinner. Salmon, her favorite. When she walked in, I was plating it. "You're home early," she said. Surprised? Guilty. "Finished early," I lied. "Thought I'd surprise you." She kissed me. Her lips tasted different. I didn't let myself think about why. "You're wonderful," she said. We ate dinner. She talked about depositions that never happened. I nodded, asked questions. She lied beautifully, with details that felt true. She'd probably practiced in the car. After dinner, she showered. I heard the water running for 20 minutes. When she came out, her skin was red, scrubbed raw. We made love that night. She initiated it, pulled me close with an urgency that felt like desperation or guilt. Afterward, she fell asleep with her head on my chest. I stared at the ceiling, traced the cracks in the plaster like they were veins, like they were roads leading somewhere I didn't want to go. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. "Missing you already. 3 more weeks and we're free." I memorized the number, put the phone back. Vivienne shifted in her sleep. Her hand Found mine. Love you, she murmured. I squeezed her hand. I know, I said. The next morning, I went to see an old colleague, Marcus Webb, former FBI, now private security. We'd worked together on a money laundering case 5 years ago. He owed me a favor. I need surveillance, I told him. Complete digital footprint, financial records, communications, travel history. Who's the target? I slid him a photo of Castellano, and I need it invisible. No traces. Marcus studied the photo, then studied me. This personal. Very. He nodded. Didn't ask more questions. That's why I liked him. 2 weeks, he said. 1 week, I replied. And Marcus, I need everything. The kind of everything that ends people. He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. That'll cost extra. Bill me. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not quite control. Not yet. But close. That night, Vivienne and I watched a movie. Some thriller about betrayal and revenge. She fell asleep halfway through. I watched the ending alone. The protagonist got away with it. The guilty party died beautifully, tragically. Justice served, cold and final. I turned off the TV in the darkness. I could hear Vivienne breathing, steady, peaceful. She'd always been able to sleep through anything. I envied that. I wouldn't sleep peacefully again until this was over. The transformation didn't happen all at once. It came in waves, in moments between moments, while making coffee, while driving to work, while watching Vivienne apply her lipstick in the bathroom mirror. That careful precision she used for everything except honesty. The first wave was grief. I mourned her like she died, because in a way, she had. The woman I married, the one who laughed at my terrible jokes, who cried during wedding vows and movies, who once stayed up all night helping me prepare a presentation. She was gone. Maybe she'd never existed at all. Maybe I'd married a performance that hurt more than the infidelity. The second wave was rage. It came white hot and blinding. I'd be in the shower, and suddenly I'd see it, her, and Castellano, tangled in hotel sheets, laughing about me. The devoted husband, the useful fool, the man who'd unknowingly taught her how to commit the perfect crime. Put my fist through the bathroom wall. Vivienne heard the crash, came running. What happened? I looked at my bleeding knuckles, at the hole in the drywall. Slipped, I said. Grabbed the wall. She believed me. She always believed her own lies reflected back. The third wave was clarity. It came. Cold, crystalline, sharp as surgical steel. I stopped, feeling and started thinking. Marcus delivered the files on day 6. 300 pages. Financial records, hotel receipts, text messages recovered from supposedly deleted accounts. Photos not intimate ones, but damning nonetheless. Castellano and Vivienne at restaurants, in his car, entering his apartment building at midnight. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst was the timeline. They'd met 2 years ago, not when she took his case. Before, at a legal conference in Miami. They'd been involved for 24 months, which meant everything the last 2 years of our marriage. Her birthday trip we took to Paris. The night she told me she wanted to start trying for a baby, all of it was contaminated. All of it was lies, and there was more. She wasn't just planning to run away with him. She was planning to frame me. Deep in her encrypted files, I found the blueprint. After Castellano's acquittal, evidence would surface. Falsified documents showing I'd taken bribes from his company, that I'd deliberately compromised the prosecution's case. My career would be destroyed, my reputation ruined. I'd face criminal charges while they disappeared with his money. It was elegant, horrifying, perfect. She'd learned from the best. From me, I sat in my home office for 6 hours, reading every page. My coffee went cold. The sun set. Vivienne came home, called my name, eventually went to bed without me. I read until I'd memorized every detail. Then I started planning. The old me, the one who loved her, trusted her, believed in the sanctity of marriage. He wanted justice through proper channels. Report her to the Bar Association. Give evidence to prosecutors. Let the system handle it. But the system was what Vivienne knew how to manipulate. She'd spent 15 years learning its weaknesses, its loopholes, its blind spots. If I went to the authorities, she'd see it coming. She'd have explanations, counter-evidence, reasonable doubt. She'd win. She always won, so I couldn't play by her rules. I needed to become what I'd never been before, what she'd trained me to be without realizing it. I needed to become the thing she feared most, someone smarter than her. I started with the small things. I became the perfect husband, attentive, loving. I brought her coffee in bed, surprised her with her favorite takeout, asked about her day, and listened, really listened, as she lied to me with increasing confidence. I made her feel safe. Meanwhile, I built my case. I created a separate identity, Michael Ross, forensic consultant. I used him to request files from Castellano's company, claiming to work for an international audit firm. They sent everything. They always did when someone used the right letterhead. I found the bodies, not literal ones, financial bodies, ghost accounts, patients who died in clinical trials that were never reported, bribes disguised as consulting fees, a paper trail that led directly to Castellano's personal accounts and 2 offshore accounts. Vivienne had helped him establish. She wasn't just defending him. She was his partner. Every cent he'd stolen, she'd helped him hide. Every witness he needed discredited, she'd handled. Every piece of evidence that disappeared her work. 23 people had died because of medications Castellano pushed through. Medications he knew were dangerous. Medications he profited from, and Vivienne had made it possible. I printed everything, built a physical file 6 inches thick. Then I made copies, encrypted backups, cloud storage under fake names. I scattered the evidence like landmines across the internet, each one waiting to be triggered. Then I went deeper. I hired my own investigator, not Marcus, someone with different skills, someone who specialized in social engineering. Her name was Alina. She was expensive and worth every dollar. I need access to his life, I told her. His real life, the one he doesn't show anyone. She smiled. Everyone has secrets. Find them. She did. Castellano had another woman, not Vivienne, a mistress in Chicago. Young, early 20s. He'd set her up in an apartment, paid her rent, bought her a car. This had been going on for 8 months. Vivienne didn't know. I held that information like a grenade, but I didn't want to just hurt her. I wanted to dismantle her, piece by piece. The way she'd been planning to dismantle me, I wanted her to lose everything she thought she'd won at night. I'd lie next to her and feel nothing. The love had burned out. The rage had calcified into something harder, something patient. She'd roll toward me in her sleep. Her hand would find my chest. She'd murmur contentedly. I'd stare at the ceiling and count down the days. 3 weeks until the trial. 3 weeks until she thought she'd won. 3 weeks until I became her nightmare one night. She woke up and found me watching her. Can't sleep, she asked. Just thinking, I said. About what? I touched her face, traced the line of her jaw. About how much things can change, I said. How someone can think they know everything and be completely blind. She smiled sleepily. You're being philosophical. Maybe? Come here. She pulled me close. Whatever you're worried about, it'll be okay. Held her. Felt her heartbeat against my chest. No, I said. And I did, because I'd learned something important in those 3 weeks of research and planning in cold, careful rage. I'd learned that revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about precision. It was about taking someone's perfect plan and turning it into their perfect prison. It was about making them destroy themselves. and I knew exactly how to do it. The plan required 3 things: timing, misdirection, and her own ambition. I had all 3. The trial was set to begin in 18 days. Vivienne was confident. She'd spent the last week preparing her opening statement, rehearsing it in our living room while I pretended to work on my laptop. She was good, compelling. She painted Castellano as a visionary businessman, destroyed by jealous colleagues and overzealous prosecutors. She almost convinced me, and I knew the truth. "What do you think?" she asked after her final run-through. "I think you'll win," I said. She smiled, kissed the top of my head. "I always do." That was her weakness, not the arrogance itself, but what it blinded her to. Phase 1 of my plan began on a Tuesday. I contacted Sarah Chen's attorney. The CFO, Vivienne, planned to frame. I didn't identify myself. Used an encrypted email. Attached a single document memo in Vivienne's handwriting outlining the frame job. The subject line: "Your client is being set up." I didn't wait for a response. Didn't need one. I knew Chen's lawyer would investigate, would start building a defense that would complicate Vivienne's strategy. Wouldn't stop her, but would make her work harder. Make her focus elsewhere. While she was distracted, I moved to phase 2. I hired a journalist, Trevor Malick, investigative reporter for the Herald, the kind who'd built his career exposing corruption. I'd followed his work for years: pharmaceutical companies, political scandals, corporate fraud. He was relentless. We met in a parking garage. Cliché, but effective. "You said you had something on the Castellano case," he said. I handed him a USB drive. Things on there. Financial records showing Castellano embezzled over $200 million. Evidence of falsified drug trials. Patients who died. Bribes. All of it. He examined the drive like it might explode. "Why give this to me?" "Because the prosecution doesn't have it, and they should." "Why not give it to them directly?" "Because they'll bury it in legal procedures. Discovery motions. It'll take months, years. You can publish it now. Let the public see who Castellano really is before the jury decides." Trevor's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "Someone who believes in justice." "Justice." He laughed, bitter. "Everyone who gives me anonymous tips says that. It's time it's true." It's pocketed the drive. "If this is what you say it is, it'll destroy him. Trial or no trial. That's the idea." I left him there. Drove home. Vivienne was already asleep. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and watched her. She looked peaceful, innocent. I wondered if Castellano would think the same thing when he realized what I'd done. Phase 3 was more delicate. Okay? Needed to turn them against each other. Make them doubt. Make them suspicious. Let their own paranoia do my work. I started with small things. I created a fake email account. Sent Castellano a message from an anonymous address. "She's using you. Check the offshore accounts. 30% is already missing." It wasn't true, but he wouldn't know that. He'd check. He'd question her. Then I sent Vivienne a message from a different anonymous account. "He has another woman in Chicago. While you plan your future, he's planning his without you." I included a photo. Castellano and his mistress, Alina, had gotten dozens. I sent the messages on the same day. Then I waited. The explosion came that night. I was in my office when I heard Vivienne's voice rise in the living room. She was on the phone. Not professional, raw. "Don't lie to me, Victor." I saw the pictures. Silence. She was listening. I could imagine his denials. "I don't care about your explanations." "Who is she?" More silence. "You think you can play me?" Her voice cracked. "I've given up everything for you." I heard something shatter. Glass. She'd thrown her phone. I waited 5 minutes. Then walked into the living room. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by glass shards from her wine glass. Mascara streaked down her face. "Vivienne." She looked up. For a moment, I saw real fear in her eyes. Then she composed herself, shifted her expression. Fine, just work stress. The trial. I sat next to her, carefully avoiding the glass. You can talk to me, I said. She laughed. It sounded like sobbing. Can I? Always. She leaned against me. I could feel her shaking. What if I told you I've made terrible mistakes? My heart rate didn't change. I had trained myself for this. Everyone makes mistakes, I said. It's not like mine. Try me. For a moment, one brief, crystalline moment, I thought she might confess, might tell me everything, might give me the satisfaction of hearing it from her own lips. But she didn't see. She pulled away, wiped her eyes. It's nothing. I'm just tired, okay? I said. I helped her clean up the glass. We went to bed. She curled away from me. I listened to her cry silently into her pillow. I felt nothing. The next morning, Trevor's article dropped. Pharmaceutical empire built on bodies. Exclusive investigation into Victor Castellano's company. It was devastating. Detailed names of patients who'd died. Falsified trial data. Financial records showing the money trail. Everything I'd given him, presented with journalistic precision. The story went viral within hours. By noon, federal prosecutors had announced they were expanding their investigation. By evening, 3 major news networks had picked it up. By midnight, protesters were gathering outside Castellano's office building. Vivienne called me from her office. Her voice was ice. Have you seen the news? About Castellano? Yes, it's everywhere. Someone leaked evidence. Evidence the prosecution didn't have. Sounds like someone wanted the truth out there. Silence. I could hear her breathing. The trial might be postponed, or he might take a plea. Isn't that good? Less work for you. Victor doesn't want to take a plea. Her voice hardened. He wants to fight, even with all this evidence. Especially with all this evidence. He says someone's setting him up. I allowed myself a small smile. She couldn't see it. Is he right? I asked. I don't know anymore. She hung up. That night, I activated Phase 4. I sent an anonymous package to the district attorney's office. Inside, copies of Vivienne's encrypted files, the ones showing her complicity, her offshore accounts, her plans to frame Sarah Chen. I didn't include everything, just enough to start questions, enough to make the DA's office look at her differently, enough to make her a suspect instead of just Castellano's attorney. Then I sent a similar package to the State Bar Association. Ethics violations, evidence of conspiracy. Her career wouldn't survive the investigation. The final phase was the cruelest. Akaya waited until Vivienne came home late one night, exhausted, destroyed. The trial had been postponed indefinitely. Castellano was blaming her for the leak. The Bar Association had opened an investigation. Her firm had put her on administrative leave. Everything was falling apart. She found me in the kitchen. I was making tea. I need to tell you something, she said. I turned, looked at her, really looked at her. She was broken, beautiful and broken. I'm listening, I said. She opened her mouth, closed it. Tears started falling. Can't, she whispered. I can't tell you. I handed her a cup of tea. Then don't. She took it. Her hands were shaking. Do you ever feel like your whole life is built on lies? She asked. Sometimes, I said. What do you do when you realize that? I met her eyes. You face the truth, whatever it costs. She nodded, didn't speak, drank her tea in silence. That night, she fell asleep in my arms. She cried until she had nothing left. I held her, stroked her hair, whispered that everything would be okay. I lied as easily as she once had, because the truth was, nothing would be okay. Not for her, not ever again. The trial resumed 3 weeks later, not postponed, not canceled. The prosecution was determined to move forward despite the media circus, or perhaps because of it. Public pressure demanded justice. The faces of dead patients stared from every newspaper. Their families gave interviews. The story had grown beyond one man's fraud. It had become a referendum on corporate greed. Vivienne tried to withdraw from the case. I saw the motion on her laptop one night, carefully worded, citing unforeseen conflicts and personal circumstances. She never filed it. Castellano wouldn't let her. He showed up at our house, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I answered the door. "I need to speak with Vivienne," he said, up close. He looked different than his photos, older, harder. There were lines around his mouth that spoke of cruelty, not laughter. "She's not available," I said. "I know she's home. Her car's in the driveway. She's not available to you." Study me. Recognition flickered. "You're the husband I am. She talks about you." His smile was sharp. "Said you were ... understanding." I felt that familiar, cold clarity wash over me. "Did she?" Moved aside. "This is between me and her." "No," I said. "It's between you and consequences." His expression shifted. "Dangerous now." "What did you say?" I said, "Consequences. You know the word? It's what happens when someone thinks they're untouchable." Vivienne appeared behind me. Her face was pale. "Victor, leave. We need to talk about the trial, about your strategy." I said, "Leave. You're not thinking clearly, Vivienne. These accusations, someone is setting me up, setting us up. We need to be unified." "There is no us," she said quietly. His jaw tightened. "After everything I've given you, given me." Her laugh was broken glass. "You've destroyed me, my career, my reputation, everything. Our plan? There is no plan anymore, Victor. There's just survival. And I'm not sure either of us will manage that." He looked between us. Something calculating entered his expression. "You told him, didn't you?" Vivienne didn't answer. "You told your husband about us, about everything." I let the silence stretch. "Let him believe it. Get off my property," I said, "before I call the police." He stepped forward. I didn't move. "You think you're better than me? You've been blind for 2 years, while I hit him, not hard, just enough." A sharp jab to the solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. "That's for lying to yourself," I said, "thinking you could take everything from me and I wouldn't notice." I dragged him to his car, opened the door, shoved him inside. "Stay away from my wife," I said. I watched him drive away. My hand hurt. It felt good. When I turned, Vivienne was still in the doorway, staring at me. "You knew?" she whispered. "Yes." "How long?" "Long enough." She slid down the doorframe, sat on the ground like her legs wouldn't hold her. "Why didn't you say anything?" I crouched beside her, because I needed to understand, needed to see how deep it went. And now I know everything. Her eyes were hollow. "Are you going to leave me?" I touched her face, gently, like I still loved her. "No," I said. "I'm going to watch you save yourself." "Can't." "You can. You're going to do exactly what you do best, Vivienne. You're going to walk into that courtroom and fight like your life depends on it. For him, for you. Because if Castellano goes down, he'll take you with him. You know he will. He'll tell them everything about the offshore accounts, the evidence, tampering, all of it. Your only chance is to win this case. Get him acquitted. Make him grateful enough to disappear and leave you alone." She was shaking her head. "I can't defend him. Not after what? After you learned he has another woman, that he was going to betray you the same way you betrayed me." She flinched. "This is your mess, Vivienne. Fix it." I walked inside, left her sitting there in the dark. The next morning, she went to work. She didn't speak to me at breakfast, didn't look at me, but she got dressed in her courtroom armor navy suit, red lipstick. Her mother's pearls, she left. I knew she'd fight, because she had no choice, and I knew she'd lose, because I'd made certain of it. Phase 5 began the day the trial resumed. I attended every session, sat in the back of the courtroom, watched Vivienne perform. She was magnificent, even broken, even terrified. She commanded that room. Her opening statement painted Castellano as a visionary betrayed by small minds in corporate politics. The jury listened. Some nodded. Then the prosecution began their case. They had everything. Trevor's article had exposed, and more, witnesses, documents, financial experts who traced every stolen dollar, families of patients who'd died, sweeping on the stand. Vivienne objected, cross-examined, fought for every inch, but the tide was against her. On day 4 of the trial, the prosecution called an unexpected witness, Sarah Chen. The CFO, Vivienne, had planned to frame. Chen's testimony was devastating. She explained how she'd been approached by investigators, and investigators who'd given her evidence of a conspiracy to frame her. Evidence that included memos in Vivienne's handwriting. The courtroom erupted. The judge called a recess, demanded Vivienne and the prosecutors meet in chambers. I watched her walk out. Her spine was straight, but her hands were trembling. She didn't come home that night, or the next. I received a phone call on day 6. Her firm. She'd been suspended pending investigation. The Bar Association had accelerated their ethics review. There was talk of criminal charges, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, fraud. I felt nothing. On day 7, Castellano's mistress in Chicago gave an interview, said he'd promised her a future, said he'd talked about money in offshore accounts, said he'd mentioned a business partner who was handling everything. The interview aired during the trial's lunch recess. When court resumed, Castellano looked like he wanted to kill someone. His eyes found me in the back of the courtroom. He knew. I smiled. That night, Vivienne finally came home. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her courtroom armor was wrinkled. Her makeup was gone. "It was you," she said. I was sitting in the dark living room, drinking scotch. "Sit down," I said. She did, collapsed onto the couch like a marionette with cut strings. The leaked evidence, the journalist, the timing of everything. "It was you?" "Yes." "Why?" I turned on the lamp. "Let her see my face. You were going to frame me, destroy my career, my reputation, send me to prison while you ran away with him and his stolen millions. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Her face crumbled. "I didn't want. Don't lie. Not now. You planned every detail. I read the files, Vivienne. I saw the memos. You were going to sacrifice me to save him." "I loved you," she whispered. "No, you loved the idea of me, the devoted husband who asked no questions, who gave you everything you needed to commit the perfect crime."
Please?
"Did you ever love me? Really? Or was I always just useful?" She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I stood, finished my scotch. The trial will end soon. Castellano will be convicted. The evidence is overwhelming. And then the investigation will turn to you, your offshore accounts, your conspiracy, your obstruction of justice. "I'll go to prison," she said. "Probably. You could stop this. You could tell them it was a mistake, that I was coerced." And looked at her, this woman I had married, this stranger wearing her face. "I could," I said, "but I won't." "Why not?" "Because you would have let me burn. You would have sat in that Portuguese villa with your murderous boyfriend and convinced yourself it was justified, that I deserved it somehow, that you'd earned your happiness." She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but sorry doesn't rebuild lives. It just makes the person saying it feel better." I walked to the door, stopped. "The trial resumes Monday. You should prepare. You're still his attorney until you're formally disbarred." "Where are you going?" "Somewhere else. I've rented an apartment. The divorce papers will be delivered tomorrow. Don't leave me, please. I have no one else." Looked back at her one last time. You have exactly what you deserve, I said, and I left. Reed Trinzi's verdict came on a Thursday. Guilty on all counts. I watched it on television from my new apartment. Sparse furniture, white walls, no photographs, nothing that reminded me of before. The camera panned across the courtroom. Castellano's face was stone. Vivienne stood beside him, professional to the end. But I could see it the way her hands gripped the table, the slight tremor in her shoulders. She'd lost. They both had. Sentencing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Castellano faced 40 years minimum. The judge denied bail. He was remanded immediately. As they led him away in handcuffs, he turned toward Vivienne. He said something. The cameras didn't catch it, but I saw her face go white. I knew what he'd said. He'd told her he'd talk. He'd tell them everything. Trade her freedom for a reduced sentence. That's what men like him did. They survived by feeding others to the wolves. The phone calls started that night. Vivienne, again and again. I didn't answer. Let them go to voicemail. Listened to her voice fracture with each message. Please, we need to talk. I know you're angry, but please, pick up. They're going to arrest me. The prosecutors called. They want me to come in for questioning. I'm scared. Please, I know I don't deserve it, but please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For everything. The last message came at 3 in the morning. She wasn't crying anymore. Her voice was empty. I understand now. What you did. Why you did it. I would have done the same thing. Maybe that's what you wanted me to realize. That we're the same. That I created this. Thank you for teaching me that. I hope it gives you peace. I deleted all the messages, but I couldn't delete the sound of her voice. 3 days after the verdict, federal agents arrested her. Conspiracy to obstruct justice. Money laundering. Fraud. The charges rolled out like an indictment of everything she'd become. Her bail was set at $2 million. She couldn't make it. Her assets were frozen. Her family had disowned her. Her colleagues wouldn't return her calls. She sat in jail awaiting trial. I could have helped her, could have posted bail, could have testified on her behalf, said she'd been coerced, manipulated, that Castellano had controlled her. I did nothing. 2 weeks later, received a visitor, Alina, my investigator. She sat across with me in a coffee shop, looking uncomfortable. I'm done with the job, she said. Everything you asked for is complete. Thank you, but I need to ask you something. I waited. Do you know what you've done to her? Yes, she's going to spend the next decade in prison, maybe longer. Her career is destroyed. Her reputation, everything I know. Elena leaned forward. I've worked with a lot of people seeking revenge. Usually, they want the satisfaction of confrontation, of seeing their target break. But you're different. You dismantled her life from a distance, turned her own ambition into her prison. That's cold. She would have done the same to me, would she? The question hung between us. I found something else, Alina said. Something I wasn't looking for. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, medical records. Vivienne's from 2 years ago. Around the time she met Castellano. Mental health evaluation, depression, anxiety. A therapist's notes about a patient struggling with feelings of inadequacy, of never being good enough, of fearing abandonment. She was sick, Alina said quietly. Not legally insane, but struggling. When she met Castellano, he saw that, used it, made her feel powerful, important, needed. Classic manipulation. I stared at the records. Okay, that doesn't excuse what she did, I said. No, but it explains it. Why are you showing me this? Because revenge is easier when the target is a monster. But she wasn't a monster. She was a person who made terrible choices. There's a difference. Lena stood. My bill is paid. We're done. But you should think about whether this is really what you wanted. She left. I sat there for an hour, reading the records, understanding, finally, terribly, that Vivienne had been broken long before she broke me. It didn't change anything. It couldn't, but it made the victory taste like ash that night. I went to see her. The jail was gray concrete and fluorescent lights. I signed in, waited in a room that smelled like disinfectant and despair. They brought her out in orange. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. She looked young without it. Vulnerable. She sat across from me. The glass partition between us felt symbolic. "Why are you here?" she asked. "I don't know." To gloat. "Maybe. Then do it. Tell me how I deserve this. How justice has been served. How I'm getting exactly what I earned." I looked at her. "Is that what you think I want to hear? Isn't it? I came to ask you a question." She waited. "When did you stop loving me? Was it gradual? Or was there a specific moment when you looked at me and thought, I can hurt him, I can use him, and he'll never know?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I never stopped loving you. Don't. I know you don't believe me. I know I have no right to say it, but it's true. I loved you when I married you. I loved you when I met Victor. I loved you even when I was planning." Her voice broke. "I loved you the whole time. That's what makes it unforgivable." "Then why?" "Because he made me feel like someone I wasn't. Someone powerful. Someone who could do anything. And you made me feel safe, loved, human, and I hated that. I hated needing you. So I convinced myself I could have both. That I could love you and destroy you, and somehow that was okay, because I deserved everything I wanted." She pressed her hand against the glass. "I was wrong. About everything. And now I'm here. And you won. You systematically dismantled my entire life. Used my own tactics against me. Turned me into exactly what I feared most, someone powerless and alone." "Yes," I said. "Was it worth it?" I thought about that. About the months of planning. The cold satisfaction of watching her world collapse. The nights I'd spent feeling nothing while she cried herself to sleep beside me. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm going to plead guilty," she said. "To everything. Victor's already cooperating with prosecutors, giving them details about my involvement. My lawyers say if I cooperate too, if I testify against him, I might get 15 years instead of 30. Will you?" "Testify against him?" "Yes. He destroyed my life. Why shouldn't I return the favor?" She smiled. It was my smile, the one I'd worn while planning her destruction. We'd taught each other too well. "I need to ask you something," she said, "and I need you to be honest, okay? Did any of it mean anything? Our marriage, the years we had before Victor, or was I always just playing a role in your life too?" I wanted to lie, to hurt her one more time, to say it had all been nothing, but I couldn't. "It meant everything," I said, "until it didn't." She nodded. "Understood." That's what I thought. The guard announced visiting time was over. Vivienne stood. "Will you come back?" "No, I didn't think so." She turned to leave, stopped. "For what it's worth, you were right. About everything. I would have destroyed you. Would have convinced myself it was justified. You saved yourself the only way possible." "I know. Hope you find peace," she said. "Real peace. Not just revenge disguised as justice." They led her away. I sat there for a long time after, staring at the empty chair, the smudge her hand had left on the glass. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was the color of bruises. I drove home through streets that felt unfamiliar. Past our old house, my old house. The windows were dark. I'd put it on the market. Couldn't stand to live in a place built on lies. My new apartment was waiting, empty and clean in mine. I poured a drink, sat in the silence, thought about Elena's question. Was this really what you wanted? I'd won. Vivienne was in prison. Castellano was in prison. Justice had been served. Everyone who'd betrayed me was paying for it. So why did it feel like I lost something too? My phone buzzed. Email from my lawyer. The divorce was final. Everything split down the middle. Clean break. I was free. Completely, utterly free. I raised my glass to the empty room. To freedom, I said. The words echoed back at me. They sounded like a lie. 6 months later, I testified at Vivienne's trial. The prosecution called me as a character witness. They wanted me to paint a picture of deception, the devoted wife who'd hidden a double life, a trusted partner who'd betrayed everything. I told the truth. I spoke about our marriage, the good years before Castellano, how she'd been brilliant and ambitious and flawed like anyone else, how I'd loved her without reservation. Then I told them about the discovery, the burner phone, the encrypted files, the plan to frame me while she disappeared with stolen millions. I didn't embellish, didn't need to. The facts were damning enough. Vivienne watched me from the defense table. She'd lost weight. Her suit hung loose. Her eyes were hollow, but steady. She didn't look away, didn't flinch. When I finished, her attorney cross-examined me. Mr. Hayes, you've testified about discovering your wife's affair, about her involvement with Mr. Castellano's criminal activities. But isn't it true that you then engaged in your own campaign of, let's call it, strategic revelation? I revealed the truth. I said, "Cool, you leaked evidence to journalists. You sent anonymous packages to prosecutors. You systematically dismantled both Mr. Castellano's defense and your wife's career. That goes beyond simply revealing truth, doesn't it? She was planning to send me to prison for crimes I didn't commit. I defended myself by destroying her, by exposing her." The attorney smiled thinly. "And you feel no remorse?" I looked at Vivienne. She was watching me, waiting. "I feel many things," I said. "Remorse isn't one of them." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Vivienne testified in her own defense. She was composed, articulate. She admitted to everything: the affair, the money laundering, the conspiracy. She didn't make excuses. "I convinced myself I could have 2 lives," she told the jury. "One with a man I loved, and one with a man who made me feel powerful. I thought I was smart enough to manage both. I was wrong. And in my arrogance, I was willing to sacrifice an innocent man, my husband, to preserve my illusion. That's unforgivable." Her voice never wavered. The jury deliberated for 2 days, guilty on all counts. Sentencing came a month later. The judge was an older woman with still gray hair and no patience for justifications. "Ms. Hayes," she said, "you were an officer of the court. You took an oath to uphold justice. Instead, you corrupted it. You helped a man responsible for multiple deaths evade accountability. You planned to frame an innocent person. You betrayed every principle your profession stands for." Vivienne stood straight, accepted it. 10 years. Federal prison. Eligible for parole in 12 with good behavior. I watched from the gallery as they led her away. She didn't look back. Castellano had been sentenced to 45 years 2 months earlier. He'd cooperated with prosecutors, testified against Vivienne, and still received decades. The families of his victims had spoken at his sentencing, told stories of children who'd died, of lives destroyed by addiction, of trust betrayed. He'd wept. It had looked genuine. It didn't matter. Justice, when it finally came, was thorough. I left the courthouse and drove to the ocean. I'd rented a house there, small, isolated, a place to think, to rebuild something I couldn't yet name. The water was gray-green and infinite. Waves crashed against rocks. Seabirds circled overhead, crying their lonely songs. I sat on the beach until sunset, thought about Vivienne in her cell, about Castellano in his, about how revenge, when executed perfectly, felt nothing like the movies promised. It didn't bring peace, didn't heal wounds, didn't restore what was lost. It just ended things. My phone rang. Marcus Webb. I'd almost forgotten about him. "Saw the sentencing," he said. 18 years. That's a long time. Yes? You okay? I don't know. That's honest. He paused. You did what you had to do. She would have destroyed you. I know, but it doesn't feel like winning. No, it never does, Marcus said quietly. Real revenge isn't like the movies. There's no catharsis, no music swell, just the aftermath. Just you and the choices you made. Why are you telling me this? Because I've been where you are. Different circumstances, same hollow feeling. And I want you to know it gets better. Not easier, but better. You learn to live with what you did, with who you became to survive, okay? And if I don't want to be that person anymore, then you change. You decide who you want to be next. That's the real choice, not revenge or forgiveness, but who you become after. He hung up. I sat there as darkness fell. The ocean became black, indistinguishable from the sky. Stars emerged, cold and distant. I thought about Elena's medical records, about Vivienne's struggles with inadequacy and abandonment, about how Castellano had exploited those vulnerabilities. I thought about my own transformation, how easily I'd learned to lie, to manipulate, to destroy, how I'd become the thing I was fighting against. We'd both been monsters in the end, just different kinds. A year passed. I sold the beach house, moved to a city I'd never lived in before. Portland, rain and bridges and people who didn't know my story. I started a new consulting firm, small clients, ethical work, nothing that required deception or moral compromise. It paid less, but I slept better. I dated occasionally, coffee, dinner, nothing serious. I'd tell them I was divorced, and they'd nod sympathetically and not ask questions. How could I explain? How could I say I dismantled my wife's life with surgical precision because she planned to do the same to me? I couldn't, so I didn't. I followed Vivienne's case from a distance. She was serving her time in a federal facility in California. I'd heard through former colleagues that she was working in the prison library, teaching other inmates to read. Quiet, model prisoner. I didn't visit, didn't write. The divorce had severed us legally. I'd severed us every other way long before, but sometimes, late at night, I'd think about her, about the woman I'd married in autumn when leaves fell like copper coins, about how she looked at me then like I was solid ground in an uncertain world. Had that been real? Any of it? I'd never know. On the second anniversary of her sentencing, I received a letter, prison envelope, her handwriting. I almost threw it away. Instead, I opened it. Dear Michael, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect anything from you anymore, but I needed to write it anyway. I've had 2 years to think about what happened, about the choices I made, about who I became. The therapist here says I need to take accountability without expectation of forgiveness. So that's what this is. I was wrong about everything. I convinced myself I deserved happiness at any cost, that my desires justified any action. I saw you as an obstacle to that happiness instead of as the person who actually provided it. You were right to do what you did. I would have destroyed you, would have slept peacefully in Portugal while you rotted in prison for my crimes. That's who I was. That's the truth. But here's something else that's true. I loved you. Not enough to stop me. Not enough to save either of us. But I did. I still do, in whatever broken way I'm capable of. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to write back. I just needed you to know that you didn't imagine it. The good years were real. My love was real. It just wasn't enough to overcome my ambition and selfishness. I hope you found peace. I hope you've built a life that doesn't taste like revenge. You deserve that. I'll spend the next decade becoming someone who deserves a second chance. Not from you, from myself. Take care. Vivienne. Read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw it away either. 3 years after that, I met someone. Her name was Claire. She was a teacher, kind, uncomplicated. She laughed easily and asked questions without ulterior motives. She knew I'd been married before and didn't press for details. We dated for a year before. I told her everything. We were sitting in her apartment, rain against windows. She'd made dinner. We'd drunk wine. The conversation had drifted to pasts and secrets. My ex-wife tried to frame me for crimes she committed, I said. So I systematically exposed her. She's in federal prison. 18 years. Claire was quiet for a long moment. Did she deserve it? She asked finally. Yes. Do you regret it? I thought about that. About Vivienne in her cell. About the hollow victory. About the person I'd become. I regret that it was necessary, I said. But I don't regret surviving. Claire nodded, took my hand. Thank you for telling me you're not afraid. Of what? That you'll do the same to me. She smiled. I'm not planning to frame you for anything. I think we're safe, was the right answer. The perfect answer. I almost believed it. 5 years after Vivienne's sentencing, I received word she was up for parole, good behavior, completed multiple rehabilitation programs, showed genuine remorse. The parole board was considering early release. Her lawyer contacted me, asked if I'd write a letter. Support or opposition, my choice. I stared at the request for a week. Finally, I wrote, to the parole board, Vivienne Hayes betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. She planned to destroy my life to preserve her own interests. If she had succeeded, I would likely be in prison while she lived free. That said, I believe in rehabilitation. I believe people can change. Whether Vivienne has changed, I cannot say. I haven't spoken to her in 5 years, but I've changed. I'm no longer the man who built her prison. I'm trying to be someone who believes in second chances, even for people who didn't give me one. Do with this what you will. Michael's eyes scented. Didn't think about it again. 6 months later, heard she'd been denied parole, another 3 years minimum. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity. Just a distant ache of something that happened to someone else. In another life, Claire and I got married that spring. Small ceremony, close friends, no media, no drama, just vows exchanged under a clear sky. Both of us older and wiser and carrying scars we'd learned to live with. She wore white. I wore gray. We promised to be honest, to be kind, to remember that love without trust is just a beautiful prison. I meant every word. 10 years after Vivienne's sentencing, got a final letter. She'd been released, served her time. She was living in a halfway house in San Diego, working at a nonprofit for formerly incarcerated women, building something small and honest. I'm not writing to reconnect, the letter said, just to say thank you for teaching me what it means to face consequences, for showing me that actions have weight, for being the mirror I needed, even though it shattered me. I had built a small life here. It's nothing compared to what I had, but it's mine. It's real, and it's enough. I hope you're happy. I hope you found someone who gives you what I couldn't. You deserved better than me. I'm finally becoming someone who understands that. Be well. Vivi and I showed the letter to Claire. Are you going to write back? She asked. I thought about it, about closure and forgiveness and all the complicated mathematics of moving forward. I said, some stories don't need endings, just distance. She kissed my forehead. Okay? That night, I burned the letter, watched it curl and blacken and turn to ash, watched the past finally become smoke. I thought about the man. I'd been the one who'd married Vivienne in autumn, who'd believed in forever, who'd learned too late that forever is just another word for until. I thought about the man I'd become. Calculating, capable of destruction. The ghost hood haunted Vivienne's perfect crime until it became her perfect prison. And I had thought about the man I was now, someone who'd learned that revenge is just another kind of cage, that you can win every battle and still lose yourself. standing there, watching the ashes scatter. I made a choice. I chose to let her go. Not forgiveness is earned, and she'd never asked for it, but release. Let her be someone else's story, someone else's mistake. Let myself be something other than her destroyer. Claire came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist. "You okay?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, and for the first time in a decade, I meant it. The fire died. The night settled in. Stars emerged overhead, same as they'd always been, cold, distant, and infinite. Somewhere in San Diego, Vivienne was probably watching the same stars, building her small, honest life, learning to live with who she'd been. We'd both survived, both changed, both become people we never imagined we'd have to be. That was enough. It had to be. Outside, the wind picked up, carried away the last of the ashes, carried away the ghost of autumn leaves and copper coins. And a woman who'd smiled like she meant it. I closed my eyes. My wife framed me for her lover's crimes, so I became the ghost she couldn't escape. And then, finally, I let myself become human again.